Hey, I'm Marcus, and Nick is on vacation. We are working class nerds. Cue the intro. That's right. We are Working Class Nerds, the podcast that gives you no information about your favorite information. Today is Thursday, July 15th, 2021, and you can find this 113 podcast on Apple Podcasts, Buzzsprout, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and anywhere you find podcasts in this galaxy far, far away. You can watch me play video games at twitch.tv/MarcusB814, and you can watch Nick's first official stream this coming Monday, July 19th, 2021 at 9 p.m. Eastern. We all got to show him that Nerds community love because it's his first official stream. It will not say test on the screen. You can also find me on Twitter. I am at MarcusB814. In this week's episode, we're podcasting with the Gaming Persona podcast hosts, Dr. Gameology, great friend of mine, and Jenny. Welcome to the show, and what have you guys been up to?
Hey, Marcus. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I'm so excited to have you both here. Doc and I have been talking about this forever. And it's like the day, like the culmination of today, like all day I was like that little kid with my tail wagging all day, or like a puppy, and then just the tail's wagging all day because I was excited for tonight. You know what I mean?
I'm so excited that you said you're fantastic.
I did that for you.
I am so glad. That makes me so happy.
Yes.
I was so ready to say cue the intro all day, and it didn't happen.
Wait, do you want to start over? We can totally start all this over.
Oh, no. No, this is good. This is good so far. Everyone will have to wonder.
Well, so Jenny,
I might need a pee break in 20 minutes.
There you go.
Okay, Nick. Okay, Nick. Just relax, Dr. Nick, and we will we'll get your bathroom break. Don't you worry. But Jenny, your first time on the show, so welcome. What have you been doing in and out of gaming?
Okay, so out of gaming, I just got back from New York. I was in New York for about a week photographing a wedding. So for people who don't know, I am a photographer. I am a wedding photographer, engagement photographer. I do family photos and all kinds of different photo shoots. And I actually get to work with really cool people because my branding is very nerdy. So I got to go up to New York this past weekend and photograph a wedding at a venue that was like right on the water overlooking the Manhattan skyline. It was epic. And then I spent some time with family. So that was really fun.
How do you live in Florida?
Yes.
How do you get work in New York?
Well, I'm dual based. My business is dual based in Florida and New York. So I advertise for work here in Florida as well as in New York. So, yeah. So I have like a listing on the knot.com, which is like a really popular advertising site for wedding professionals.
Yeah, that's where we found our wedding venue.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, I have a profile on there in New York as well as in Florida.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. It's really great. And I have family up in New York. I'm originally from New Jersey. So I get to go up there a lot and it's wonderful. But yeah, in game, it's been a busy couple weeks. So I feel like this is something that we not struggle with, but this is something that comes up almost every week on our podcast. But I have not been gaming that much lately. So, but I have a gaming date thing tomorrow, not a date, but like a set time to game tomorrow with my friend. We're playing SWTOR tomorrow at 3:30 and it's happening.
Wait, so are you so busy that you actually have to carve out a scheduled time to play video games?
Yeah, that's kind of what it's like right now.
That's okay.
Yeah.
It's actually, for me to hear that, I think that's pretty awesome, because that's what I like about streaming personally. It's like, I know that every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Saturday at 8:30 p.m., I am going to be in front of my computer, and like nothing's going to stop that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I do understand the scheduled game time.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's how I have to do it. I'm going to have to switch my mindset a little bit so that I can actually game.
Yeah,
Well,
and you're gonna have to be my white mage sometime, Jenny, eventually.
I know. I miss it so much. I've been watching so much Final Fantasy content, like on YouTube.
Twitch.tv/Dr. Gameology.
Yeah, occasionally, yes.
But I understand the struggle with Final Fantasy 14, and I love the game. I love it. But the problem is that intro, like the original game, that is, I think it's just like a rebuilt, like they relaunched the game and they fixed it. What is it called? Realm Reborn?
Realm Reborn. It's actually not the same game as the base game original. They actually destroyed that world with a cataclysm. And so the world you're in is actually like a second coming of life because the first 14 was so bad, Marcus.
No, I understand that, but the new one, I struggle with any games that gate me behind baloney. And like the fact that like I can't, like, so let's say I'm level 50, but like my main, or what do they call it, an MSQ in that game says I'm level 20. So like I'm still doing like all the baby dungeons, and really that's all I want to do. And it's really hard for me because it's such a time sink. Like there's like 1,000 missions you have to go through to get to the current content.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a little bit frustrating sometimes to do duties, like lower level duties, because especially for me, I don't play very often. So it's hard for me to like figure out my rotation and figure out like what I'm supposed to be doing if I keep playing dungeons that are lower level and I lose all my moves. So
no, I agree.
Yeah.
And then there's Doc, who's just an elite, and he's max level on every character.
I know.
He's end game rating, and he's just a boss now in Final Fantasy.
I wish all of that was true, but actually the raid team that I'm on, which is having our first official raid night on Tuesday, I'm not going to be able to participate because their plan of what they're doing would require me to finish Shadowbringers and also clear some additional content before Tuesday night. And
they won't do a younger raid for you?
I could ask, but I think that their expectation when they announced the team and did younger level content 2 or 3 weeks ago was that I would be cleared from work and have no adult responsibilities and be able to just play 18 hours a day, and I'd totally be at that spot by July 20th. And that's just not how it is, because I've been doing a lot of cool things in work, and I don't seem to be leveling as fast. Like there's a Facebook group I'm in where someone today posted, it took 75 epic days, but I just got to I just cleared the final mission before Endwalker. Such an amazing journey. I'm like, 75 days? I created my character on November 5th, and I'm like still 200 missions away from that moment.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And I mean, people that talk about the game say how it like respects your time. I actually feel like it doesn't respect your time. It wants you to spend all the time in the world going through every single mission. But on the same side of that is the game is pretty awesome in that sense, because they make you raid, they make you do dungeons. So it essentially, when you're getting through the content, I believe you're a better player by the end game.
Yeah.
because it's forced you to do raids and dungeons and duties. And yes, I just said duties for like the 7th time tonight. And so I do love it. But something else too, I don't know if you guys heard, Final Fantasy 14 had to pull their game from the shelves. Like they could not sell a digital version of the game. Did you guys hear about that?
Yeah, for a couple hours because the amount of new players that were queuing into their data centers were slowing the game down.
Wow.
Well, it was breaking the game. It was shutting the servers down because they couldn't handle the influx of players. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yep.
It is.
I'm so happy for them.
Thank you, World of Warcraft.
Yeah,
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so back to you, Jenny. So you've scheduled your time. So what are your nights a week to game?
I haven't even thought about that. I kind of just take it day by day, because my life is not really that predictable, I guess. So for now, tomorrow, Friday afternoons is going to be a good time for me to play SWTOR because that's when my friend is off of work. But even that, I can only play for a couple hours because I really have lots of editing to do. So
no, I understand that completely.
Yeah.
So Doc, welcome back to the show. How the heck are you? And what have you been up to? And just for the record, before you answer that, so everybody understands, there's nobody on this planet that I know personally that works as hard as Doc and I. And I'm not saying this is an ego thing, but him and I have this crazy understanding. Like I'll call him during the day and we'll talk for an hour, but I'll be in the shop working and he'll be doing his thing. And we may not even talk to each other for like 7 minutes because he's doing something or I'm doing something. And then we just pick up where we left off, but we're still on the phone with each other. And we understand that we're working and this is what we have to do to have a conversation. Sorry.
Yeah.
That was my sidebar.
It's fine. So those 7 minutes, it turns out, usually I'm grading things because in order for me to keep my life nice and organized and create time to play video games or record podcasts or do a Twitch stream, I have to be super efficient. And it turns out it's really easy to grade papers and have a phone call if the paper is good. Those 7 minutes represent the dark side happening in academia. So I've gotten a little better at it, Marcus, but there are still some times where the amount of comments that I have to make to help that person get up to where they need to be, assuming they read my comments, it's hard sometimes because I don't get to do the face-to-face thing and sit down and say, hey, what's going on? It's all online and I have to try to, like Game Facts. Do you remember those days, Marcus?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like I've written thousands of Game Facts, but for mental health counseling at this point.
Well,
yeah. Like if we need a geek therapy kind of idea of what it is I do, I love video games so much that I'll just tell my students, this is a really good idea. I like the skill you selected there, but you really need to level it up. And that's just, and then I'll explain where you get the EXP points from. Mm-hmm. It's, that's basically what I am, just in a genuine sense. I think games are a great metaphor for explaining progression and how people develop skill sets and overcome insane obstacles. And I think some of the mistakes we make in life are because we take games more seriously than things we should be taking seriously, like our craft. So thank you so much for also saying I work hard. I guess I just look at opportunities like they're a chance for me to level up. And if I can run around Oricon like 285 days out of 365 in 2017 for some reason, because I'm leveling up an operative, then why wouldn't I say yes to some mundane, repetitive task that I can do in mental health that eventually creates Dr. Gameology?
I get it completely. And what's really fun about that is being able to make sure that you have time for you. And it's almost like a reward, right? When you bust your butt at work or take a ton of photos and you have editing to do, and then you're at a point and you're like, you know what? I got far enough. I accomplished what I needed to. It's time to game a little bit.
Yep.
Once you start gaming, like all of the, for me now, when I start playing games, like I become one with the force. Even if I'm playing a stressful game, like when I'm done playing games, I feel better. Mm-hmm. And maybe it's because it's my stress relief, or maybe it's just because I love it. I don't know what that answer is, but so it's almost like a reward for your hard work.
Yeah. And I think also for me, I've learned to, you know how people do power naps when they have like a break in the middle of the day and they just choose to have like 17 minutes of sleep. Like it's not enough to really recharge you, but it is enough to make 4 o'clock feel better. I don't know.
I wish I could get one of those.
Well, right. I mean, given what you do, I'm not surprised that doesn't exactly fit, but people know the concept. And sometimes I do fit in video game type tasks into my work day that way, because it is somewhat demoralizing to start work early and work late, put all this effort into the number of classes that I'm teaching. And, you know, I've talked with Jenny about this because her editing photos sometimes sounds to me very similar as well. So I guess we just have 3 capital W working class nerds there. Like the work is on the show, people. Yeah. That if we really all wanted to never play video games ever, we have enough work to make that happen very easily. You have to just choose a stopping point and give yourself permission to do something that creates the illusion that you're a real human being.
Yeah. I'm with you 100%. Now, in game, what have you been doing?
My blue mage hit max level yesterday. So my white mage is level 77 and is what I'm using in Shadowbringers. So she's going to hit level 80 white mage in Final Fantasy 14 during that story. And then I'll have to decide about red mage, which is in the 50s right now. So it would be a major stoppage to my progress through the story. I might just finish the story off with classes that are just max level and let that EXP sadly fade into the ether. But I think that is my first big goal in the game. Is I want all the colors of mages at the max level, and I'm just a magical person, Marcus.
Well, you sure are. But the other thing I was going to say is I think it would be good for you, well, in my opinion, for you to finish the story quest. Like, who cares about the EXP? Finish the story, because then I feel like then you're going to be even more connected, and you're going to be able to be a part of an expansion at launch and be current. So like day 1 or day 2 or day 3, when the expansion comes out, you're going to be in it live, like with everybody else. The excitement's going to be real, not days later or weeks later, because you didn't want to throw away EXP. Finish it. So then your character, whichever one it is, white mage, blue mage, green mage, red,
green mage. That sounds interesting.
Oh, he uses a green lightsaber. She uses a green lightsaber. Or a green staff, I should say. But what I'm saying is being able to be involved in being able to be a part of an expansion live for me is really special. Right?
Oh, well, that's a good point, Marcus. That's not in question, though. I have 5 months and I'm right there. The question is, do I want to take out of that 5 months 2 weeks to just focus on leveling the red mage?
I can't. Okay, let me ask you guys a question. Sidebar time. When you were playing SWTOR, okay, and you were on Alderaan, and you were going to Alderaan places, did you do every main quest and then every side quest at the same time? Or did you do through the main quest of the whole thing and then circle back to do the side quests?
It was 2012, so I did all the quests available because it took a crazy amount of time to level up on those planets.
Maybe I asked the question wrong. Did you do like the main quest first and then cycle back? Or did you take every quest that was available every second of the time?
Yeah, I did. I took every quest available, and you do whatever is closest. And then, in theory, BioWare would create a path where, as you level up, the missions are in a sequential path so that the main story for your class and the main story for the planet would end at around the same time and have similar locations.
What about you, Jenny?
My answer to that is I have no idea.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't remember at all. I did not retain that information.
For me, it was always, do you do the main quest and then I circle back? Because I would lose the plot. Like you're doing one mission and then you're going to this other guy and doing another mission and then you're doing this other mission, and it's an awesome storytelling game. And I would get mixed up. Wait, I thought I was like draining the valves of acid in Nar Shaddaa in this sewer. Oh, wait, no, I got to go pick this guy's nose. Wait, where am I in the story? And then by the time you get to the end and you have to fight this dirty, dark Sith or this ridiculous befriending pub side character, I'm like, what am I doing here? So I figured out that wasn't for me in that sense. So that's how I kind of play games. So like, I don't know that I personally could handle being so close to the end of the story and not just drive forward, because I'd be so excited to see the end of wherever we are, because the big expansion's coming.
Yeah.
Well, Marcus, if you're go ahead, Jane.
I was gonna say, generally that's how I play games too. We had this conversation on our last episode, and I made the decision because I was kind of dreading getting to like the later expansions, because I really didn't want to play all these other characters, or not characters, but all these other classes. And I just felt like I would forget like how to play White Mage. And that's just not how I play video games at all. I really like to just master one type of class. So, and that would translate as well when it comes to like just doing the main story. And then going back and seeing, okay, what's important? Like what side quests are actually important or fun or cool to do.
Right. That's what I mean. Yeah. So what were you going to say, Doc?
I was going to say that I was Dark 5 when I originally leveled my sorcerer, and I didn't feel like I had that problem because you meet a new person, you kill a new person. New person does not pop up and confuse you what your mission is. Easy peasy.
Ugh, I can't do it. I can't do it. But I'll talk more about that in a minute. But all I'm saying is, Doc, finish the story, because like I feel like, but see, you're not a big story guy. Actually, let me ask you this. Do you care about the story in Final Fantasy, or are you space barring through?
I try my hardest not to space bar through, but if you watch everything in that game, which I don't think I have time to do, and I tried really hard. So what I do is I watch the cutscenes, and I very cautiously try to decide, is there any more action, or is Alpha No going to just explain something to me? And I think I'm pretty intelligent, and I don't need Alpha No to explain things to me. And so, however, the cutscene I was watching right before we started this episode, Marcus, I was trying to figure out, can I skip this? And then 10 seconds after, I had a really strong urge, like, yes, I've seen everything in this scene. Someone jumped down from above and cast a spell on the bad guy, and totally stopped them from making my life miserable. Then they had a philosophical debate about what this means for the war that's coming. And then they switched to another cutscene where I'm in the forest and hear some voices giggling at me. And that was another 10 minutes of my life. So basically, I was at the point where it's like, yeah, I've got this. I can skip this and just enjoy my life. But I would have canceled out 14 minutes of plot twist or, surprise. Not like plot twist like I am your father, but like just surprising. Like the turn would have happened and I would have never known. And I don't know how important that scene is either. So it could turn out that I should have skipped it. But you don't know, right? Like you don't know when you're making the choice. And so you just have to make the choice that will allow you to still enjoy the game. So I probably could skip all the scenes and enjoy the game, but people tell me Shadowbringers is the best Final Fantasy story of all time. And so whether they're right or not, I have yet to decide because I haven't seen it. And there's this thing like I don't think I'd be happy with myself to one day, like 20 years from now, if I do skip it now, realize, yeah, I did skip through the best Final Fantasy game of all time, because Final Fantasy actually means a lot to me. Just this game has too much story. And for my kind of lifestyle, like if I have 45 minutes to play, I would like gameplay for at least 41 of those minutes, not 9. Yeah, do the math. Do the math, people.
I'm not at work. I'm not doing the math. Math is done for me for the day. But no. So I do understand what you're saying. I do, because the only MMO I really know is SWTOR, and the cutscenes aren't that long, right? Yeah. Their cutscenes are basically decision tree conversations, so they can be long if you're not paying attention. But at the same time, you can spacebar, then read the sentence, hit whatever you want, and then move forward. Sorry, that latte is getting me. But now I think I know myself. I would just have to be at the end anyway. Well, I'm super happy you guys are here. Like, I'm so excited, and Doc's one of my closest friends in the world, and like, it's so awesome to have you back. Anyway, so Nick, what have you been up to this week? Oh yeah, Nick is on vacation. So right now, he actually texted me and he said he's at a Jimmy Buffett cover band concert, and he said everybody's shwasted at the concert, and he's just sitting there like, he's like,
fantastic.
He goes, I've never even heard like any song by Jimmy Buffett except Margaritaville, and he said this is ridiculous. But anyway, so Nick is having a good vacation. But me, what have I been up to? Oh boy. So I have officially found that second game that I love. I've been talking about it for 113 episodes of a game that I can tell you that I like, that perfect second game for me. I found it. And you know how I know I found it? Because I have more hours in this game in the last 2 weeks than I do in SWTOR.
Whoa.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm absolutely hooked on this game. What is the game? Destiny 2. It gives me all of the things that I love in video games. I love first-person shooters. I love PvP. I love PvE story stuff. And I love first-person shooters. And I like the fact that of like earning gear and being able to level up your character. And as everybody knows, I am a graphical snob. I'm bougie when it comes to graphics. Like, I want my games to be beautiful at the highest graphical setting possible. And this game is beautiful. Coming from SWTOR, which is 10 years old now, and the engine's probably 13 or 14 years old. Like, the quality of this game is unbelievable. And what they can do in this game blows me away. I'll give you an example. Imagine an arena, like a big square room, right? In the center of the room, there's a circle with a black dot on it. When you zone into the room, you fall through the floor and you land on this circle dot. In the corners of the room, there are these giant enemies shooting rockets at you. You cannot damage them. Here's where it gets crazy. You shoot. So if you're standing in the shadows and you kill an enemy, they drop dark triangles, almost like orbs. Let's call them orbs for the sake of conversation. And you need to do, and the game tells you by one of those circle things in the middle of the room, if it's white, you need light points. If it's dark, you need dark points. So the game forces you to either stand in the light or stand in the dark to kill enemies, to be able to achieve this part of the mechanics to get to the next phase, right? You guys with me so far?
Mm-hmm.
Possibly.
Okay, so Nick, I mean, Doc, when you're killing enemies, like let's say I need 10 dark points, you can only hold 5 at a time, and then you have to stand on the center ring. It essentially absorbs the orbs, and then you run back. But you have to stand in the shade and kill enemies in the shade in order to achieve dark orbs. Because if you stand in the light, they drop light orbs, and it does nothing, and you don't progress the fight.
Okay, so it has mechanics that are based on light.
Correct. Yes. Here, you ready for this? You can't make this up. Once you beat this phase, everybody stands on the center ring, and the screen kind of goes dark, and then you start falling. The entire room rotates, and you land back on the center ring, but now the room is completely different, except the 4 corners have bosses shooting you. Yes, it's mayhem in every goddamn way.
I love it.
And I lose my shit every time. So, but what I'm saying is it has a gear grind. It has a grind to get guns. It is based on RNG, and I think RNG is dumb. I would much rather have a game say you need 50,000 this currency and make it really hard to get that currency in order to purchase this gun rather than get RNG. That's me.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that RNG is just a false way to extend the life of the game and keep people playing it because they can't produce enough content to, how do I say it? They can't produce enough content to keep people satisfied, so they make artificial content by RNG. Anyway, moving on. So we officially have a raid team. It's a 6-person raid. We're going to be doing it Monday nights. I am not streaming it. And we're just helping one of the team members get this sword that you have to kill this one boss, and we're doing the quest with them. So Atrax, make sure you get your lament. Anyways, the last thing is I finally hit 1300 power level. I think the cap is 1330 or 1320 or something. I don't actually know, but it's really good to see, like, once you hit 1300, I feel like I'm there. You know what I mean? I'm one of the players. I'm not just a noob. You know what I mean? But I still do get my shit wrecked every single day, but I love it. In SWTOR stuff, I've been raiding. We're still doing Nightmare EC. We had a couple somebody call out last minute yesterday. I canceled the raid Tuesday. We had a couple call outs. It's vacation time, I get it. But instead of doing Nightmare Explosive Conflict, we did hard mode. Gods from the Machine. Gods from the Machine is my favorite op, but we did it with 7 people, and a couple of the people have never done it, and we were doing the most ridiculous tactics ever. I haven't laughed like this for 2 hours in a long time.
Aww.
Like, we were trying to just kill the boss and not deal with the ads at all. And there were so many ads on the platform at one point that, like, the boss cleaved one of, like, all of the ads at once, and his stacks got to like 40, and we were all dead. It was hilarious. But I don't know if you guys have ever had a night like this. It made me really happy to not see that same boss again and again and again. And then one of the subs that was filling in, he said to me, "Are you guys still on the same boss that I filled in for you a month ago?" And I said, "Yep." And he goes, "Oh, we got to kill this boss." And I said, "Yeah, we need the kill." But then somebody called out. No big deal. Also, 2, I'm on my last class story, which I'm doing the Jedi Counselor. And I have found myself playing it dark side ever since I did the Sith sorcerer as Marcus. Like the whole thing, I played it as me. He looked like me. And we went through the entire story, and I answered it as if I would be the person answering it. And I ended up being like, I was light 1.
That's so interesting.
It was really interesting because I did use dark side, but I didn't use it all the time. Because like some of the things he was like, just shock your companion. And I was like, I'm not going to shock. What's his name? The Dash Rude. Oh, I can't.
Kemball.
Yeah, I couldn't shock him. I'm like, that's mean. Like he's got my back. He's going to have my back.
You.
He's not going to eat me because he's your companion.
Right. But like, that's you having plot armor from BioWare. But like, he actually wanted to eat you when you were on Korriban.
Right. Exactly. So that's what my gaming stuff, streaming. I just want to thank everybody in the nerds community. You guys are awesome. Like, you guys have shown so much support. Tuesday was a really tough day for me. And, Wednesday, a few friends knew, and like, you guys made my stream on Wednesday fantastic. It's so awesome. And I measure a stream success by the chat for me. Like, everybody measures it differently. I love when people are just chatting with me about everything. I love that in my streams. When the chat is really quiet, I'm almost like, why won't somebody talk to me? And I might actually say it, but like, it's because I just love interacting with people so much during the stream. But the channel has grown so much, and I can't thank everybody enough. And, to my moderators, thank you, Rube, Kokus, Tabs, Master Lil, thank you guys so much. Without you, the stream is not what it is. And the last thing is, today, Valve announced the new Stream Deck. Did you guys see it?
I did.
Because you showed me.
Yes. So what the Stream Deck is it's a handheld PC, and it's going to run at 720p, 60 frames a second, but you can turn it down to 30 frames a second to get better battery life. It's saying that any game on Steam, you're going to be able to play it on this Stream Deck. That's pretty awesome to me.
Yeah.
That is cool. Actually, yes. Like for me, we just went away and I had my Switch. And have you guys ever played Mario Party?
Of course.
Yeah.
Okay. I never thought I would have that much fun playing a game.
You've never played before that?
Never.
I'm shocked.
Man.
I love that game.
I was always just playing Mario Kart or like GoldenEye or Zelda on the 64. I never played Mario Party.
I love that game.
Yes. So, but with the Stream Deck, like for me, I'm thinking about all my Steam library games because Doc in the pre-show said, Marcus, how many games are in your Steam library that you never played? Like, how cool is that I can just play, like download one game and play it because it's handheld on vacation? I am totally buying this thing. This really intrigues me. I don't know if I would buy it on launch, but it's definitely something to watch for. I'm watching the video right now and it's just awesome. Anyway, meanwhile, back at the ranch in SWTOR news, we finally got a response from the developers about the PTS Jedi Guardian stuff. Basically, they said, we're going through all the feedback that's being posted here, blah, blah, blah. Thank you to everybody, but stop being a jerk. Tell us the criticism that you have, but don't be a jerk about it. There were some, it's so funny. Twitter and like forums are like a cesspool for people. Mm-hmm. Like there's some really good people on it, but then there's people that just want to be rude to be rude. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying that the SWTOR devs aren't screwing up the game. I'm not saying they're doing any of that stuff, but you don't have to be rude about it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like if you don't like what they're doing, then just don't play the game. or say, hey, I'm playing the Jedi Guardian and you have to pick between Saber Throw and Saber Reflect. That should not be a choice. Instead of saying, hey, you guys are on drugs and you're, all the whole development team should just shut the game down. You know what I mean? It's like, what are you doing? Like, just say that, hey, you took away a third of our abilities.
So, Marcus, I actually just want to talk about the move sets that they're creating to simplify, I guess, the way people have moves on these classes.
Mm-hmm.
How entertaining would our podcast be if I said we can use all the words in our vocabulary, but you can't use the letter B, F, H, Q, T, and you can't use the vowels U or O? No, you just used a U. I used a U to contradict you. Okay, now that's essentially what BioWare is doing to their veterans, and it's going to be no effect for new players who say, wow, this game existed for 10 years. I will start playing it now. But I don't understand the motivation behind removing moves that are like when you really learn a class, all the moves feel essential at a certain point. And you situationally have all these memories of times that move helped with a situation. And so it's, I don't know. It just seems a little bit like they're doing drugs and they should shut the game down. I'm kidding. But I don't get it.
I don't either. And Doc, I'm telling you, I don't understand it. The only thing, okay, so the Stream Deck was just announced, right? I feel like seeing that they're taking away a third of the moves, right? Are they trying to have it so you can play it on the Stream Deck? Because it's a Valve game, and Valve sent a letter to all of the developers 2 years ago saying, look, we're coming out with this. We'd like your game to be able to be played on it. Do what you have to do. I don't have that answer. But for me, I watched Kogis's YouTube video. And now Kogis, for me, is the best Jug player there is, right? In my opinion. Or Jedi Guardian. He breaks down each move via PvE and PvP. Like, that video is unbelievable because he explains why the PTS is broken. And yes, he said this is the first iteration of the PTS, but let's face it, they've been working on this PTS for years. So as somebody in the back end office decided that taking away Saber Reflect is a good idea.
Is this for DPS or is it for Juggernaut that's spec'd as a tank?
It's for Jedi. See, I don't understand the pub side because it's the worst side, and I barely play it. You know what I mean?
Our show talks about this too, by the way, Marcus. We have a synergy going here.
Yeah.
Well, of course we do. We're all friends. So but my point, and I'm not trying to be negative, but I'm trying to understand is like, okay, on the PTS, they have the Grit Teeth Tactical, which works with Enraged Defense. But on the PTS, there is no Enraged Defense, but you have the Grit Teeth Tactical. So is it option A where BioWare just said, okay, we're going to take out a bunch of stuff. We're going to put it in a ball. We're going to throw it against the wall and see what happens. We're going to give everybody the worst possible product we possibly can and say, oh, it's PTS, it's our first iteration? Or were they planning on doing this for a long time, but they're behind on their schedule and they didn't get a chance to remove all the moves that they needed to remove? Or last thing is, or do they just say, okay, Jedi Guardian is the least used in endgame and ranked PvP, so we're going to just take out all these moves because nobody plays this class and get it thrown aside, and then we'll wait for the developers who play the Merc, the Sork, and the Operative, and we'll give them all the best of the best because that's what we play in the office.
So, Marcus, the thing I'm wondering to kind of answer that question is actually let's assume that these decisions are not random and that there is a cross the board philosophical decision about how classes need to work. If people can switch them up, mix and match, flip and flop their classes across their character with these new design changes. So I have all this history with SWTOR, but I'm playing Final Fantasy XIV right now. And one of the things that is very different playing Black Mage is, and then also playing Lightning Sorcerer and, the healing one, is in SWTOR, every single class has offensive moves, defensive cooldowns, and some DPS classes have light heals. And so Saber Reflect is one of those moves that is a defensive cooldown that turns into an offensive cheese. And so it's not essential for the button clicking part of your damage. It's passive damage that inflates your numbers and makes the fight easier, especially if you have other DPS that are not doing their rotation as effectively. So by removing that, you are changing that DPS class into a just do your damage moves. And that reminds me of how Final Fantasy XIV does it, is tanks have tank moves, DPS have DPS moves, and healers have healer moves. And your function outside of that is so much closer to nothing than in SWTOR, where every class has the ability to dabble in other things. Does that make sense?
It does.
It's like by taking that move away from Guardians and Juggernauts, they are sending a clear message that we've decided that this class is something different now.
Yeah, I do agree. I'm curious to see. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. And, I'm looking at what's happening with World of Warcraft right now, and it's clear that when people get mad, they leave. And, they're at a point where they have to decide, BioWare and SWTOR, okay, you're doing your 10-year, but are you going to nerf all the classes for whatever the reason is? And I feel deep down, like if they just came out and said, hey, the Stream Deck is out, we want SWTOR to be able to play on the Stream Deck, and I'm giving that as an example, then this is why we're doing this. But instead they're just they're taking out a 30-year moves, not giving you reasons why, not allowing you to be able to do the things you have to do because there's nothing to benefit you because nothing works together in it. I don't know. Is
this the first build of the DPS that's headed towards the next expansion?
Well, the one that we've seen on a PTS server.
So the first PTS for Onslaught was enraging as well, and was kind of what the heck, guys.
Isn't that the point of having a PTS?
Yeah, like how much can we tick off our players but still get their subscription money on the third?
No.
Right. Well, no, it's the truth. It's absolutely, but that's what it feels like here. They're throwing, and I'm the first person to, because I remember the Onslaught. I remember the gearing in Onslaught, and the community changed that expansion. The community stood up and said, nope, we don't want this. And they actually stood up to do it. And for me, it was more of like, this is the first build. I understand, but this build doesn't even allow you to do the things you need to do because they're giving you the wrong tacticals to be able to even do something effective. So we'll see. And are they going to take out, because when did a Guardian or Jug get Saber Reflect? It wasn't right away. That wasn't a launch day move. That was added later.
I don't know that. I didn't play Juggernaut in a intelligent way back then.
All right. So what I mean is, hopefully they're going to come out with some answers. So it's almost been a week. They responded on the 14th, which was yesterday, which is Wednesday, and they're saying later this week. So I would say probably Friday, they're going to say, here's the things we said. We're going to launch another iteration and go hide in a corner for the weekend so they can, not have to deal with it. Anyway, go PTS. Anyways, in AIE news, Tuesdays are our mandatory fun night in the guild. MFN stands for mandatory fun night, where the fun is mandatory and attendance is not. It's 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern time, which is the correct time zone, which is the greatest thing ever that Doc is on the East Coast. And we switch between the imp side and the pub side every other week. So make sure you check out the Discord for that. And Fridays are the place to be in AIE. It's so cheesy. The first Friday of every month, we do Master Mode Flashpoints. The second week, which was last week, we do our hard mode training group hosted by yours truly. This week, we did Scum and Villainy. And I don't know if we had just a really good group or it's gotten really easy, but we cleared Scum and Villainy hard mode in one night on a training group. So shout out to everybody who came, listened, and we killed Cyrac in the first night, which is pretty sweet because that definitely took me a while to beat when we were proccing it. The third Friday of every month is achievement hunting, where you want the Nerf Herder achievement, you let them know, and they might plan for that for you to get it. And then the fourth Friday of every month is Mega, which is the monthly Epic Guild activity. Every month we do something different, and it's really fun, whether it's Datacron's World Boss Hunting or we do racing around Tatooine. Hint, hint, that's what's coming next week. And please check that out. Megas happen at 9 p.m. Actually, all of these Friday events happen at 9 p.m. Eastern, usually run about 2 hours, and you get a little break in between. And if all this sounds fun to you, go to aie-guild.org, top right-hand corner, click the Discord link. It will bring you to the Discord. Click whatever game you play, whether you play Final Fantasy XIV and you want to play with Doc, SWTOR with me, Destiny 2 with me, or any of the other games that we play, we would love to have you. Wow. This is at that point where Nick would be like dancing in his seat. Going, I got to go to the bathroom. And just from my comment earlier, everybody, Doc used to live in Arizona, and it was like a 2 or a 3 hour difference because they don't do the whole daylight savings thing. It was the worst thing ever. You ever want to call your friend at your lunchtime, and your lunchtime is 9 a.m. for him, and he's in the middle of work stuff? It sucks. Now I call it lunchtime. He's on lunch. It's fantastic.
Hooray.
Yeah, hooray. Yeah. So let's get into the meat of the potatoes. Meat in the potatoes. I'm like, anyways. So today we're going to discuss what it's like to start a podcast about video games and how they make us feel. So I'm going to start with you, Jenny.
Oh,
how did this podcast, did Doc have to hard sell you on doing a podcast with him? And how did that happen?
I would say kind of.
Ooh, now it's getting spicy in here.
Not in a spicy way. So I have like two main fears in this world. And the first fear is zombies. I am absolutely horrified of zombies. And the second fear is public speaking. And so even though podcasting is not technically public speaking, it still feels like it sometimes. And so I was actually really scared to go into this with him. And I was apprehensive and kind of worried and nervous and all of the feelings. But I think ultimately I trust Daniel a lot more than I fear public speaking. So.
Well, I feel anytime you do something for the first time, your nerves are going to get you. You're nervous. You don't like, do you talk too much? Do you not talk too much? Do you say or ah, or oh my God, is your mic sound terrible? Do you have a squeaky chair in the background? Trust me, we've done this. And I remember what it was like to record episode number 1. Mm-hmm. And both of us were so nervous. but I feel like you're doing a great job. And the best part for me for any podcast is I tell everybody, if you start listening to a podcast, like you sure listen to the most current episode, but then go back to the first episode, because then you can see where they came from to where they are today.
Oh my
and
God.
You yourself, Jenny, have become such a great podcaster, and your chemistry with Doc is fantastic.
Yeah,
But
I would be scared to do that now. That's my fear, is listening to our first podcast.
You have to. It's really like the first 3 minutes. The first 3 minutes of every podcast is magic in the beginning, because that's full nerves. Like you have the butterflies in the stomach. You're probably shaking a little bit. Like, am I doing this right? Am I talking into the mic too loud? Am I screaming at the top of my lungs? All of those things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But Doc,
Marcus,
how did you even get this idea to start the podcast?
So I don't know. Do I have 7.5 minutes?
You have all the minutes you want. Listen, this show is open-ended. You want to talk for the next 3 hours? I'm here.
Don't tell him
Watch what you're about to say, Marcus.
Marcus, that's a terrible idea.
All right. So as everyone knows, I used to have a different name. I used to be Dr. Sotor. That name no longer has any meaning for me. Okay. Sorry, Star Wars. I love that quote now, by the way. It's just like the fact that Darth Vader has a line. I put it in our episode, actually, Jenny. I don't know if you've heard the most recent one, but I actually finally on an episode of our show admitted that at a time I was Dr. Sotor. It was actually really important to explain what we were talking about. And I was on Utini Cast, Marcus. So, and Utini Cast, by the way, was a very important part of my life. I was a co-host on the show for 2 years, but even before that, they brought me on as a guest when I needed to get the news out about my PhD research, which was personality theory, psychological motivation for playing MMO games, and then 80 questions about how we play SWTOR, down to how much do we craft, what classes have we leveled up, what content do we play, what's our favorite content in order from 1 to 10. And so that led to my PhD getting done, me becoming Dr. Kaufman and Dr. SWTOR, and then doing the podcast. So as far as my time talking with Jenny, she got to be one of my very close friends because of work life. And then that became SWTOR. She started playing with me. So this is all coalescing. It's all happening at the same time. It's a mess of growth for me. And so eventually SWTOR started to kill me. The Onslaught expansion did not go well for me and what I enjoy about video games. And not all of it is BioWare's fault. Yes, all of it is BioWare's fault, but in a mix of direct and indirect reasons. They don't control who I play the game with, but they do control the calculators that run the RNG behind their game. So I left, and once I stopped playing SWTOR, it became obvious that I can't do Teeny Cast anymore. And so the pandemic happened. I got taken out of the classroom at the grad school where I'm teaching, and everything became in front of the computer screen. So I took advantage of this West Coast opportunity where I'm waking up early for me, but people that want to watch my streaming channel are fully awake, which is actually something that I miss a lot, Marcus. It's in order for me to capture the same thing, I would have to start streaming at 4 a.m.
I guess if you're trying to get like the EU,
no, I'd have to start streaming actually at 10 a.m. and I can't do that. Anyway, so I started playing Persona 5 Royal as my stream game. persona. And for people who maybe need a little background on that word, it comes from Jungian psychology or analytical psychology. It's the concept that our subconscious possesses an array of masks that we put on to successfully navigate our environment. And this helps us to be shielded from any damaging experiences that could cut straight into our ego, which is the part of our identity that truly matters to us. And so you put the mask on. So Jenny puts her podcaster mask on. And even if people say, this episode sucks, the mask takes that hit, not her actual genuine self. So she's able to not worry about it and continue doing an excellent job podcasting. So that's an example of why we use personas. And I started talking to Jenny about Persona. I talked to you a lot during that time, Marcus, when I was playing Persona.
Yep.
And I had just stepped down from being on UtiniCast, so I didn't have a weekly or bi-weekly conversation about SWTOR. And I didn't necessarily want a weekly conversation about SWTOR either, because their patch notes were just making me even more angry as a game player. And I don't enjoy dissecting patch notes anyway. If I'm that serious about a game, I don't know. We'll see how deep I go with Final Fantasy. But I think that's the point where I start to really start despising things, because you start seeing the inner logic and you want to feel like you can philosophically debate the inner logic. And you can't, because the game devs are the game devs and you're their customer. And you just need to know your roles, shut your mouth, sit at your keyboard and play the game, or not. Just if you're upset, stop playing. That's the only way anything matters.
Right.
So I don't know. I was getting close to the end of Persona. I was talking to Jenny about different ideas for a show, and we just started throwing around different names that could possibly be our show. And that's actually where our conversation felt like it was for over a month. There's actually some Twitter handles that I have access to that just don't need to exist because nothing happened with those names. And the gaming persona came up, and it felt right. Like, the persona is such a rich psychological term. It has a game series that I love a lot that uses that name too. So it has psychological theory, and it opens up the doorway for me to use what I love about clinical work, research and data, and how we play games. And so then we just kind of settled on the idea of who we become when we play games. And that's what we talk about every week on the Gaming Persona podcast.
So that was longer than 7.5 minutes, just for the record.
I think it was 6. I think it said 58 minutes when I started. No, I was thinking about this though, Marcus. I think I gave you 5 minutes there.
No, I was just kidding anyway. Well, I feel like when I hear you guys talk about your show, the passion is there. And that's what makes it really, you love the show when you have passion. And Doc, you always look at games in a very different way than I do. And hearing Jenny, because it seems like Jenny plays games almost like me, and we enjoy the games the same way. And when you guys talk about it, it's almost different, but you guys always end up at the same conclusion, that you want to have fun in video games. And what your fun is may be a little different, but as long as you're having fun, that's the biggest part.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And for me, hearing that about the persona, I think about it a lot, because when I play video games, what persona am I playing? Am I playing the Nightmare Raider, or am I playing the story player? Or am I playing the video game as a streamer? And it touches all the spots for you. You know what I mean? And I feel like podcasting allows you to be yourself and extend how you feel about things. And that's why I love this show. You know what I mean? Am I making sense?
Yeah, perfect sense. You did a really good job there using the persona terminology, Marcus. I'm so proud of you.
Well, I've been talking to you for like 8 years. So you've rubbed off a lot on me. It's the funniest thing because Doc will tell me about some things about his work and he'll mention it and I'll be like, oh, this guy. And he's like, wow, you know that? And I'm like, yeah, you told me about that like 4 years ago. And it just sticks in my head. And it's the best. Anyway, the most important question on this entire podcast, Jenny, who is your favorite Star Wars character and why?
Okay. So my answer, I don't know if it's upsetting to some people.
Oh, if you say Jar Jar, this is going to be the spiciest moment ever.
No. Okay. My favorite Star Wars character, Kylo Ren, is my space bae. I love him so much. And so Adam Driver is probably like 75% of why I love him. Because Adam Driver is just, I could probably go forever on why I love Adam Driver. But yeah, I love Kylo Ren. His weapon is epic. It's like, it's unstable, just like he is. His fashion choices are like incredible. His dialogue is amazing. He's ruthless sometimes, but at the same time, he's like terribly insecure. He's just really interesting character. I feel like he's got a lot of depth, and I feel like his story it shows like vulnerability, and he's what I enjoyed most in the sequel, in the sequels.
But being your favorite character out of all Star Wars, what moment in the whatever movie it was that he was in made you go, this is my favorite character?
Okay. Probably the moment where he and Rey kill Snoke. That whole fight scene, everything about that whole scene. And it sucks because it's in my least favorite movie, but I love that scene so much. And I love that part of the story. It just feels like he went from like being this really whiny little bitch to like being like taking charge. And I like that turning point a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Doc, who's your favorite character and why?
Anakin.
Okay.
I think that I mean this whole time, Marcus, that Jenny was answering, I was trying to figure out, can I get away from saying that? Because it's such a simple answer, but I don't think I have a different answer than that available. I think Revenge of the Sith came out when I was in college. I was majoring in psychology, and the way that movie hit me was just sort of like, I felt sad, but I related to all the mistakes the Jedi were making in that movie and all the sense that the dark side was making. And Anakin makes terrible choices throughout that entire film. But we have the knowledge as viewers that, Return of the Jedi kind of reveals that maybe he wasn't really down with what the Emperor was selling fully for a lot of that. And I like the idea that people can change and make a good decision after a significant portion of their lifetime making bad decisions. I think that it became a central part of what I have to believe in order to do what I do, especially treating addictions of different kinds, and sometimes including video games, but gambling, alcohol, other drugs. Anakin falling to the dark side, and then quotes from characters like Yoda saying, if once you go down the dark path, forever will it dominate your destiny. That's a perfect way of explaining what an addiction is. Your brain can't want something it's never had because it doesn't know what it would feel like, and it's not going to convince you to derail your entire life circumstance to get something that is an unknown quantity. But once you start using it, it's like, hey, remember that? That would be really great right now. And that argument becomes more and more compelling the longer you allow it to exist in your life. So my journey as a psych student and getting ready to become what I was going to become professionally got like hooked in with me just wanting to watch all 6 Star Wars movies over and over and over. And that's because of Anakin.
It's a good answer.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody who's come on the show and has given the answer, everybody has their, I don't know if anybody's ever said your two either, but for me, hearing everybody's reason, it's special because we all have our favorite character. You know what I mean? And to hear everybody's view on the Star Wars and how it touches, and I find it to be everybody's favorite character somehow touches that person's life. Mm-hmm. So there's so many characters in the Star Wars universe that can be your favorite. I tend to find that it's probably the one that most relates to you or the way you see yourself, maybe. I'm not sure. And, I'm sure, well, Doc knows this, but Jenny, my favorite character is R2-D2 because he doesn't need the Force. He doesn't need anything. He's just there to help everybody and push everybody forward, because in all of the most important parts of Star Wars, it was R2 helping.
Yeah.
All the way to episode 4 of pushing Luke's X-Wing faster before he gets blown up, to, in the end, standing by Leia when she becomes one with the Force. Mm-hmm. And, for me, that's it. Anyways, what is your favorite episode of the gaming persona?
So this is really hard. This question is really hard because there was a time span where I felt like every week I was like, this is the best episode ever. I'm so excited that we just recorded that. And it happens all the time. But I recently, so it was Daniel's birthday last month, and I got him a present related to the podcast. And I was thinking about what episode I wanted to feature. And so I kind of already answered this question in my mind. But so our episode 19, it's called The Podcasters Share Their Journey. And the podcast, like this episode, we just talk a lot about our own personal journeys. And of course, the hero's journey is a very important part of our podcast. So this episode is kind of just really special, and we get kind of personal in it. And I just remember the feeling that I had when we were recording it, and like feeling emotional. And it was just a really lovely episode to record, and it just made me just so excited and happy that I get to do this with Daniel. So
that's awesome. Doc, what's your favorite episode of the podcast?
So I think I can give you one episode, but I feel compelled to sort of do a Mount Rushmore here.
Ooh, I like it. I like it.
Because there are different reasons that the word favorite get drawn into this. My favorite is actually the journey playthrough, because in that episode, I used the same footage that I used from my favorite psychology presentation. I did a journey presentation about existentialism and human purpose using the video game Journey. by that game company. And I recorded my entire journey through the game. And then I broke it into 10 shorter videos and put my PowerPoint slides like I do as a professor in between those things. And it was a 2-hour presentation. And the difficulty I run into all the time with Journey is a lot of people know about it, but have never played it. And if you haven't played it, then the value of everything that I'm talking about is completely just like nod your head and say, yeah, whatever. But by putting the footage in the presentation, I think that you unlock something inside people if you have the words and the language to explain why this little thing that happened on the screen with this robed figure matters. And it connects in with the monomyth. And the monomyth gives us all of our fiction stories and fandom properties that we love. Our souls connect with these things in a way that makes it matter to us. And I see a lot of the things where I wake up in the morning. You mentioned earlier in the show, Marcus, how hard a worker I am. And the reason for that is purpose and meaning. I'm on a quest to find something that is impossible to find until you found it and the journey ends. So this game and getting to share it with Jenny, one of my favorite things is just her reacting at the end to what it was like to watch it, and the sort of tone in her voice saying that showed that she was really thinking about it. At least this is how I took it. And that's all I wanted. That's all I ever want with people when I say the phrase continue the journey, is I want everyone, whether it's my client, my students, my friends, people on a podcast episode or listening to a podcast episode, watching my stream, I want people to experience that question of why am I here and what am I attempting to do? What's my grind? Where does my EXP come from? And why do I want it? And go for it. You know, the phases of the journey are in every episode of our show, Marcus. You know, the ordinary world is, let's use Star Wars, is Luke waking up on Tatooine and looking at the twin suns. And if you use the deleted scenes, he just saw a battle that feels so far away that he could never be a part of it. And it was in orbit above the planet. He could totally have been a part of it. And the droids are just like, hey, come with us. We can get you in that battle. And Obi-Wan's like, come with me to Alderaan. And then, like, that's how the ordinary world crosses the threshold and you enter the road of trials where things become real, things become tough. You run from the stormtroopers, you get on the Falcon, you leave the planet, you're out of orbit, you're on the Death Star, you know, the descent into the darkness. Like, these are the phases of the game journey. And I got to spend an hour with one of my best friends that I could ever ask for, watching this stream footage, but doing a psychology presentation with it. And instead of it being like my conference presentation, Jenny got to talk back. And it was one of the most fun things I think I've ever done, not just podcast ever done, but like literally one of the best moments ever. So
I understand that completely. And when that, you know, those moments happen, you know, you can't forget it, and it goes down in the back of your memory, like you're saying, is one of the best things. Or when you told me one of, like, your wife got you something, I don't remember if it was for your birthday or Christmas, and you're like, Marcus, this is the greatest gift I've ever gotten in my life, and I'll never forget that. You know what I mean? And like you, and it's funny that when you were talking about Star Wars, you said the moment when Luke comes out to the twin suns. That is my favorite part of all of Star Wars. Forget everything. That moment there. And over the weekend, we were watching it. Still to this day, I'm 38 years old. Still to this day, I get goosebumps on my arms and my neck when that moment happens. And you can say whatever you want about the Rise of Skywalker and the sequel trilogy. When Rey was there,
I was just going to ask
she looked up at the twin sons as she buried the lightsabers and standing there. I lost my shit.
Oh.
Like, for me, that was it. So I hear you saying that, and like, it's weird. I've never in 113 episodes got emotional. I'm completely emotional right now. It's wild. It's wild to me right now.
The neat thing about Luke too is he passes away seeing those suns on a planet, right, on Octo, where you wouldn't see those suns. So he was experiencing the return home, which is the final moment in Journey. It's why our final segment every episode is the return to our ordinary world. Is the gaming persona is literally a break from all of the nonsense and the, meetings that might not matter so much, and
or the video or the photograph editing that just doesn't matter at that point in time, or the cabinet that needs to be sanded or sprayed. I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny that you say you've never gotten emotional. I get emotional often on our podcast.
Well, the things aren't usually said that get me thinking about like magic moments.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if they do, it's never gotten me. And today it did. So anyway, sorry, Doc.
I want to add the rest of Mount Rushmore. I'm not going to do a 10-minute discussion on them, though.
Oh, I'm intrigued. You've only done George Washington. Who's next?
Okay. All right. Games Save Us from the Dark Timeline.
Yeah.
Is one of my favorite episodes too. And that episode is just about what would happen if we deleted some of the most important games and who we have become as adults from that point in time where we were introduced to them.
Okay. I got to tell you something. I still have, I don't know. Could you hear that drawer opening? Could you hear that?
Yeah.
Okay. That drawer has a PlayStation 1 memory card that has my save from Castlevania Symphony of the Night. And I'm standing in front of Dracula, essentially. And that has moved with me since I was a kid. And I will not let that go. Because in the memory card is probably dead. It probably wouldn't even work. But there's some symbol behind that of my hard work as a kid that says I never want to have to go through the entire game all over again. I got the awesome sword. I have everything I need to kill Dracula. Anyways, keep going, Doc. Sorry.
I actually think too, and this is not just because of what we're recording right now, I promise, but I think Game Friends Becoming True Friends is a really good episode. That's the episode where Jenny was on a trip to New York.
No.
And no?
It wasn't New York. It was a different trip. It was a really yeah.
I always imagine that you're in New York, Jenny.
Yeah.
Anyway, I remember the circumstances now. Jenny was on Exegol and was hanging out with Adam Driver before he got wasted in the plot. So,
in my dreams.
So, but you were my co-host for that episode, Marcus, and that episode, by the way, in addition to being a really fun other moment where we get to podcast together, it is actually the answer to one of the most misunderstood questions of all the parents for all the teenagers and grown adult men that end up having to do counseling with me for game-related issues. Is this idea that you can't really be friends with someone that you originally met in Discord is like why not?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I'm glad I have that episode in our catalog and as a resource. You can tell people in therapy, hey, listen to this podcast, and they never will. But if they were truly motivated to understand how life works, our friendship is a really interesting counter argument to a lot of misunderstandings people have about what it takes to play video games with another person with a consistent schedule, with a shared goal, and how that transitions into actually caring about what that person's life is like, not just what their DPS numbers are or their healing rotation is.
And so you can't just drop that and not expect me to say something.
All right. What do you think,
Moving
Marcus?
Well,
Moving on.
No. Meanwhile, back at the ranch. No, what I was going to say is it's really true because I'll call my wife out. My wife did not understand what even Discord was. And she couldn't understand that I was talking to somebody that lived so far away about a video game, about anything. Couldn't understand it. Just it did not compute, right? And some of the one of the most memorable moments of my life was Doc flew into the airport closest to me and then landed and then drove another 2.5 hours to New York City to go to a cantina.
Yeah.
And but that was the first time I ever met him in person.
Mm-hmm.
We talked every week, multiple times a week. And nobody understands that some of these friendships you have are I tell everybody I have 5 friends. I have 5 friends. That's it. 5. You can count them on a hand, right? Like the real true blue American friends that you see, might have grown up with, you might have met later in life. And I'll tell you what, I've had to extend that to 10 friends because I have the digital friends who have become better friends to me than my traditional true blue friends. Because I feel like you get to know somebody so much better when you're talking to them like this, rather than sitting next to them on a couch and they're staring at their phone on Facebook, or those magic moments when you actually get to hang out together and you get to watch the supposed 90-minute long movie, the first Harry Potter movie together, when it's really a 3.5 hour long movie at midnight. You know what I mean? Or going to your first Asian fusion restaurant with your close friend and his wife and his kid. And you can't make that stuff up. You know what I mean? So I do understand what you're saying about your favorite episode and how you almost have that Mount Rushmore, because each one touches a different part of your psyche. Is that what you would say?
Yeah, psyche is a great word to use right there. For sure. Absolutely.
And for you to be able to do the show with Jenny, who is one of your best friends, and be able to talk about these things, and you do that every week, I think it's special. And honestly, it's kind of magical to watch it grow. You know what I mean? And for us here at Working Class Nerds, like Nick and I, we would have these amazing conversations at work, and then one day it just turned into a podcast.
That is how it happens.
Yeah.
Is you end up having these 1 and 2 hour conversations, and you just realize that should have been a podcast episode.
Absolutely. Okay, last question, because I know we all have got things to do. Oh, actually, I really don't. What do you see the future? What do you see in the future of the Gaming Persona podcast? I want to start with you, Jenny, before Doc influences all of our answers.
Well, I think I would love to have more guests on the show. I didn't get to experience that because I obviously wasn't there at the time that you were on the show. But more specifically, I just would love to. So we had a couple episodes where we talked about different Myers-Briggs types And I think they were mostly our types and how we game and things like that. But I think it would be so interesting to talk to other people in our lives and talk about their personality types and how they game and what their motivations to play are. And yeah, having more perspectives on like who other people are when they play games would be really fun. So I would love to see that in the future.
It's a good answer. Doc.
If we wanted to make that happen, Marcus has Raid Team, and Marcus plays Destiny, and I play Final Fantasy, and we have AIE on the SWTOR and on the Final Fantasy fronts. Mm-hmm. Maybe I should just post a approximate Myers-Briggs substitute, and then if people want to be on the show, they complete it, and then we have sort of, okay, this could be a person that would be the ESFP.
Right. Yeah.
Something like that.
Even if we didn't do Myers-Briggs and we did like the gamer motivation profiles from Quantic Foundry, that would be cool too. Because we've talked about different
or what if you guys profiles. Just have somebody on the show and ask them questions about the way they play video games?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, so there's so many ways to do it. Yeah.
But if your goal is to have more guests, go for it.
Yeah.
What I find is there's always a lot of people that are willing to have a conversation, and you guys have friends that would love to have a conversation. Myself, Nick, without a doubt. I guarantee Chill and Kitty from UtiniCast would come on without a doubt. And you guys could branch out through that. I would love to see more guests on your show. And it doesn't have to be every episode. But, if that's a goal, then I say go for it.
Yeah.
I think for me too, the goal would be, I would really like to get some other clinical type people that are kind of interested in similar things as me, but have their own different approach to it, and have it be an extension of also geek therapy and all these insights. I had a video that I recorded this week for my theories class, where I had to talk with them about the iceberg model, which actually we had an episode of our show, Jenny, very early on about how MMORPGs are like an iceberg, where if you watch someone play, you see the action on the screen, but you have no concept of all the different systems they're having to work through in order to make that progress and maintain their character in these different ways. So in the video, I talked about that iceberg model with the theory, but also connected games like BioShock with Amnesiac Heroes into like why it's important to understand what's beneath the surface and how video games use that to make the game more compelling. There are so many psychologists, psychiatrists, counselors, social workers that enjoy making those kinds of insights connect with the people they work with, and maybe using our show as a way to help them broaden their voice, but have fun interacting with people who have played different games than me. So their library of connections that they can make is different and unique compared to me. And also, if you don't do that work and you wanted to be a guest, then I just think that anyone who likes the psychological aspects of video games would be a great fit. Like just having that enthusiasm to see how games work and see why we enjoy them.
I understand that completely.
I think also having it be something that is more, just I would like to dream big. I want to eventually have it be something that people who like video games in general know about, and, have it be something that maybe is somewhat talked about at game conventions by people as a place to get exposed to these ideas, because nobody was talking about this stuff when I was in school. It was all like, oh, video games. Yeah. Whatever.
Yeah, but it's different. It's different. It was different then. It's different than it is now. Okay, everybody. Tell everybody where they can find your podcast.
They can find it everywhere you can find Working Class Nerds. Google, Stitcher, Spotify, Apple, all the other places that get their feeds from there.
And where can everybody find you both?
So you go ahead, Jenny.
So I am on Instagram. My photography page is at j.lebronphotography. And I also have another Instagram page at Gear Up Gaming Shop, which is a little inactive right now, but it's there.
Awesome.
And you can find me at twitch.tv/Dr. Gameology. I have a YouTube channel. I have a Facebook. I have a Twitter. All of them are Dr. Gameology. It all matches. And if you need counseling services, I have area of effect counseling. So that's only for people in Florida and Arizona because of how our laws work. But that's where a lot of my effort goes to.
Awesome. Well, this has been fantastic, and I am so happy you guys were here.
What are you guys talking about in here?
Find out next episode of Working Class Nerds.